All right, this is going to be quite a different video. I'm going to predict some of the UK Excel Championships, which is happening next weekend, that I'm competing in. So I am just under a week away. I feel like I haven't really had enough time to practice as much as I would like, and there's some really strong competitors. So I want to talk about some of my analysis, predict what the cases might be, who the case authors might be, and so on and so on. So let's get into it. So first of all, here is a short list of my case predictions. So I'm going to try and put these in order of what I think is most likely. So this one is pretty much guaranteed. That's my number one spot. The reason I say that is because of the following. So right at the start of the last live stream battle, we can see Harry here reading Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. So he only flashes it for a bit, but that is obviously a huge giveaway. They're pretty much public knowledge. The second hint is this spoiler alert here. So this just goes through some of the sponsors, and then at the end,
the line, I'm mad, you're mad, we're all mad. And then I have to evil laugh for 30 seconds.
So this is obviously like the Mad Hatter. So then there's this slip up in a podcast where Dim mentions Harry's Alice case, but he's actually talking about like a dynamic Excel game that Harry Gross made.
To give it a try on Harry's Alice case, because that's a good, like, non-traditional.
And you can see these two up here are trying not to give away spoilers.
Maze.
The yellow brick road?
No, the Alice in the dynamic case.
I have another one.
Alice's case is like ice. It's like it's a maze, but you're going over ice. So as soon as you step in a direction, you slide until you hit a.
And now they're relieved he's talking about something else. So we know this is going to be one of the cases. Now, what's going to be in it? I think in this book there's quite a lot of mathematical things. So I asked ChatGPT for a summary of the book here, and it's basically a lot of logical puzzles and numbers. So it might ask things like, given an equation here, what's the base? So 4 times 5 equals 12. What's the base? So if we had 12 and we have 4 times 5, well, we know 4 times 5 is 20. So we want to kind of convert 20 to 12 in some kind of base. So the last digit is always going to be units. So we know that we'd be left with 18. And then we have a 1 there in what would be the 18th columns. So it would be in base 18. So if I just say equals base this in 18, we should get back 12, which we do. So we could have some calculations involving that. That's one option. I think it would essentially be like logic puzzles related to each character. And with Giles' evil laugh on that video, that's obviously like the Mad Hatter or something like that. So yeah, you could have the Mad Hatter's tea party, you know, people moving around a table, you'd use modular arithmetic. There's an example here that could be word ladders. And it would probably include cards. So you have the Queen of Hearts. So yeah, I have a lambda here for like card details that just spits out all the cards, but it doesn't do much more than that. So I guess I'd need to assign a value. Maybe it'll be something crazy like values changing depending on the last, card drawn. I don't know. Anyway, it's probably going to be quite hard. Now I did hear that Harry was on like a version 25 of his finals case, and it's one of the best cases he's written. Is he talking about this one, or is he writing 2 cases? I'm not sure. I think this Adventures of Alice case will be a bit like a case we saw called I'm Just Wild About Harry, which was round 3 of Road to Las Vegas, and they had a load of questions which were unrelated, but essentially little logic puzzles that you had to figure out, where you could tackle any question in any order. So it could be something like that. I'm not sure if it will have a map on it, and that's because I'm pretty sure there's got to be a case about the London Underground. If there's not a case about this, then it is a huge missed opportunity because there's so much you could do with this. So imagine you had a grid, like this. You could draw London Underground network going through, so you could have red, you could have a green line or something going through like this, and you could have stations as intersecting points like this with a list of cells and stations, and you can ask so many things about this, like how long does it take to travel somewhere, each train could run at a different speed, how many stations are on a certain line, how many times do you have to do a changeover if you want to go from one station to the next. These are all quite hard questions. My only issue with this one is this would be a case that's completely up Harry Gross's street. Let's put an author here actually as well, so we can, and this is my ranking of likelihood. So this is going to be Harry G. London Underground, again, I would think it was Harry Gross because this is pure like graph theory, flow diagram type stuff. That's quite mathematical and tricky, and he's done a lot of questions like that before. I'd be very surprised if he wasn't making this one. Now, he could be making 2 cases, and if I was to pick him to make 2, it would be these. However, I think there may be like a guest author that is not one of the regular authors. Obviously, the guys that are running this have a lot to do just in terms of organisation anyway, so they might consult someone else. If they were to consult someone on a case, I think it might be Dim to do it, because he is previously from the UK, I guess from his accent, so he would know these topics quite well. He has a lot of good map lambdas and stuff, so he knows what would be possible and feasible for the competitors. So maybe I will stick with that. I'm going to say / Harry Gross, because it could be. Okay, next up, I'm unsure about these ones. So UK postcodes, we could have a data case on UK postcodes where they are, you know, distances. However, distances in a London Underground case and the UK postcode, unlikely, so I'm probably going to remove that to the bottom. Pubs is quite likely. All the topics in the UK battles so far have been very British things. So London Underground, very British. I can't see a final happening without it. I think I'd be very disappointed if it didn't come up. Pubs, you could have a list of pubs, their names, you know, how much sales they make, how much beer they have, different types of beers. So you could do quite a lot with the data there. Now, croquet, the reason I've put this in is because I think it's a British sport, classical British thing that, you know, posh people do. And Harry Watson plays croquet. I think I read somewhere in a newspaper article about Excel that he plays croquet. So you could have a little picture of a croquet pitch or a scoring notation or something like that. So that is a potential. We also haven't had a game case, so I'm going to put that in yellow for potential right now. Cricket, I think like calculating over and unders and stuff doesn't work in decimal logic. I think you say like 5 and 5/6 or something. So that could create some interesting math puzzles. Football, a lot of UK people are into football, but I don't think Excel people are into football that much. But you could do something like a league table of the Premier League. Another game, sort of sport case, could be Wimbledon. Not sure how interesting that is. So I'm going to put that down as well. And then monarchs or prime ministers and their due dates and when did they, you know, pick a date, when was their reign, and so on and so on. The only reason I think this is less likely is because one of the example cases was on UK monarchs. So this was working with dates that are, you know, way in the past that Excel doesn't like very much, so you need to manipulate them to make them work. What battles they were involved in. Now I do vaguely remember something about there being more to come about this. So maybe actually this is a likely question. It also would introduce dates, which is something we haven't been tested on that much yet. So I do wonder on this one. So I think it's up there. It's up there with probably croquet, but not as high as pubs. The only reason I put croquet higher is because if I was making a case, I'd want to do it on one of my hobbies, of which there are many, because I understand it very well and I can give like proper background. Harry likes to teach people about things in his cases that he knows a lot about, so that other people like learn about things. And if this is one of his hobbies, I don't know how passionate he is about it, maybe he would want to teach people about it. So I'm going to say this is kind of my rankings here. So in terms of upfront practice, there's not much I can practice about this Adventures of Alice thing. Maybe brush up on modular arithmetic and bases. London Underground, I will try and kind of make my own version of a London Underground, think about some questions and see if my map lambdas handle it very well. Like I said, this also introduces colours, which would be nice to work with. Pubs don't need to do anything up front there. They could ask you anything about pubs and pub names and types of beer and types of wine and whatever. Croquet, need to look up the rules of croquet. So that is my case prediction. Let's go Adventures of Alice, London Underground, and UK pubs as my 3 case predictions. As part of this video, I want to make a bingo card that could be used for a drinking game or whatever. I've got a random number generator in here, labelled 1 through 25. So let's put my case predictions in. Okay, that's my cases and authors. I'm going to put guest case author as one of my bingo card predictions. So let's do guest case author. I think we'll actually add a few more because I have so many spaces here. Let's do a cricket case and let's do a royalty case. Now, in terms of other predictions, obviously somebody is going to have a laptop fail, or there'll be a live stream fail. So let's say live stream goes down. That's almost guaranteed. Then let's say one of the top competitors will have a tech fail as well. Tech fail from highly seeded player. I think we should also have somebody forgets a laptop. Now let's talk about the competitors. So I have listed all of the competitors here. So this is all the qualified people. I think there's 3 wild cards. I also think Karim can't come, so I am going to remove him there. This is all of their points from the UK cases, and this is all of their points from the Road to Las Vegas cases. I have labelled whether it's a data case, a map case, or a game case. We haven't had any game cases yet. I mean, I could go into more granular detail like text case or so on and so on. But based on this, I think we're going to have a mix and a map and a data case. To simulate this mixed case, this Adventures of Alice case, I think I'm just going to use their average over everything, because I think that will have a mix of questions in. So we'll do the standard deviation where they've actually played, the average, and then we'll run a Monte Carlo simulation to see who wins how often. So we'll give each competitor a chance of winning, and that will allow me to predict the top 10, let's say. Then I can put some of those on the bingo card. So I'll be right back whilst I set that up. Okay, so I've quickly just set up an average for each person on data cases, mixed cases and map cases, standard deviation. If there isn't a standard deviation, like if someone's only done 1 case, I just put it to 200. And then this is kind of my random simulation. So I'm just going to quickly actually cap the floor at 200 points, because I think probably most people are going to get 200 points on at least each case. Okay, so now we have all of the kind of results of a simulation of the championship. So let's now put it together. So the total point is going to be the sum of these, and then we're going to have a leaderboard. So then let's say sort by this array by the points, and then descending. So we have the winner of 1 iteration, Lorenzo, then me, then Chris Clark. So we can do another iteration, and so on. So let's run 10,000 simulations of this and count how many times each person comes first, second, third, and so on, so we can get a kind of an average. Okay, so we've now got 10,000 iterations of that randomly. Okay, so this is the placings, and this is how many times each person came in those placings. What I want to do is determine who comes first most often, then who comes second most often, and there might be some overlap because the top players might come first and second most often, but this will give us a rough idea. So we're going to say xlookup 10 to the power 6 in this, and we're going to return person, and we're going to lock that. Exact match or next smaller item. So that is our first place across to 10th, and like I said, there'll be some overlap, but that doesn't matter, it should give us a rough idea. So there we get, this is kind of our ranking. This is trying to be unbiased, so we would have Ha first, I don't know if that's how you pronounce the name, hopefully, Chris Clark second, me third, Will Freestone fourth, Ben fifth. Every time I click, this is doing another iteration because it's all done randomly, but we keep getting the same results. So let's put those in the bingo card. Chris Clark second. Let's put again because he came second in the World Championships. And then who else do we have? Will and then Ben. So Will fourth, me third. And 5th place was Ben Pridmore. Now, one more prediction. Ben is like a memory champion, so he can remember decks of cards and stuff like that. So one of my bingos is going to be Ben brings a deck of cards. And I really hope he does. We have 7 spots left to fill, and then I'm going to try and rearrange this so that no matter what kind of case comes up, you can always potentially fill a line or column or diagonal. So let's have a think about this. So another prediction, the event will finish late. That's got to be on the cards. Event finishes late. Next, let's say winner decided by less than, let's say 20 points in one of the rounds. We've got to have something for round between in there. So let's put a round between race to the finish. Let's say someone doesn't turn up. Then we have to have Giles arrives in a fur coat, or Giles brings a fur coat, even though it's the middle of summer. There's going to be probably a AI generated theme song. And one more. What else could I think might happen? I got one. Let's have Elliot moans about VLOOKUP. If I get a chance to use one, I'm going to try to do it just so that he does moan about it. I'm going to make it a little, like I said, a little cleaner for chances of a line or a diagonal or whatever actually coming true. Okay, I just realised that wasn't actually a good way to do the ranking. So what I've done instead, I've done a weighted average of what their place is. So I've said sum product of these and divide by the number of times it happens to give them a weighted average placing. I've then sorted all the players by their weighted average placing. So that actually puts Chris Clark first, me second, Ha third, Lorenzo fourth, Will Freestone fifth. And let's just do another iteration. Very similar on the top four. So, oh, that drops me to third. I'm second in most simulations, so let's update the bingo card actually for that. So Chris Clark's going to be first. I would be second. Who's going to be third? Hart is going to be third. Sorry for dropping the placing down from first. I mean, it still could happen, to be fair. Lorenzo fourth, then Will. All right, that's good. Now I actually have a placing for everyone in a logical way. Not an exact science, this was a bit rushed. But I mean, 1,000 simulations with a Monte Carlo in minimal time. We'll see what happens. Anything can happen. I will upload this video after the championships. I'll make it go live and we'll see if I got anything right. Who knows?